Yeah, so I wanted to actually talk about something that I think is a huge key to your development in relationship, probably your development in life. And I think it's a struggle point for so many, and mostly because I think it's hard for people to grasp. So um, we have a saying that if you ever work with me, or if you've watched my videos, you probably will see it at some rate, where I say to you is like, um, that we need to be able to figure out how we can get through and how we can do the things that we need to do without having everybody else be in a different place or do things that mean um, somehow that we're going to be okay. So the premise of the world, I feel like in general, is that somehow somebody else needs to do something different, and then I'm going to be okay. And once they do something different, then all of our issues go away. And you might not believe that, but look at your definitions, look at your interactions, and you'll see that frequently your arguments, your confrontations, the things that you are battling with in your relationship are all about being focused on what other people are saying, doing, how they're treating you, and then how you are tied to it emotionally. And so there is good reason for this, you guys. Like, there's a good reason that you might get tied into how people are treating you. You might get tied into whether people are thinking about you and doing all the things that they need to do for you to be okay. And that reason is, without kind of putting like a bad thing to it, that reason is kind of how we're raised in this world, where we look at what other people are doing, and that will solve our problem. And when you're a baby, I have a 3-year-old that runs around the house right now, and I mean, that's the initial thing, right? Like, if our parents don't do what it is that's needed, then we're going to be in a lot of hurt, especially as we're children. Like, we don't have the ability to really get along in this world. And so, because that's the case, like, because it's the case when we're little that that's true, I think we a lot of times don't necessarily grow out of that idea that, like, my parents, yes, I needed them when I was a baby, but I don't necessarily need people to do something for me to be okay anymore. Okay. So this is a huge deal, because what happens is we get stuck in this idea that somebody else needs to do something else, and then we take that to our relationship. And in your relationship, the hardest thing about that is the person who you are with is, one, is they're choosing you because you guys are together, but then two, they're not choosing not you, right? And when they don't do what it is that you want them to do, that you think will help you to be okay if they did do it, it's not a personal scenario, even though we make it a personal scenario, and then that is what we end up fighting about. That creates a challenge, and I don't know how often like that comes up, where somebody wants to somehow just get their partner, like, if I could just get them to do it a little bit different, everything would be good, our relationship would be good. Um, and and then we kind of stay stuck. And so this kind of spurs out, my wife and I were having this conversation. She actually is a marriage and family therapist as well. And so we were having this conversation, like, how does this get sorted out? Because I think the hardest thing is thinking about, like, well, if I don't worry about, there's two things. I think, if I don't worry about what my partner is doing, one is, will they ever do right? And then two is, how do I share my needs with my partner if I don't um, share that I have a problem with what they're doing, right? So those things make a lot of sense to me, and I want to be able to talk about those, because you have to let go of one thing in order to end up with the other, even though you wouldn't be going for that. So let me kind of break it down a little bit. So the first thing is, um, will they ever change? The truth is, like, sometimes people are not in that spot. But I will give you guys this: if you are to be able to let go of a battle between somebody else, so I always say, like, it goes like a fight like that, or somehow you're putting your forearm up to kind of protect yourself. If you don't make somebody else or interact with somebody in a way that causes fights, they get a chance to battle themselves. And so you not having this idea of my partner needs to do something different allows them to be what it is that they need to be versus battle like, man, I'm not good enough for this person, or I need to hurry up and get this done because I have a standard. Instead, they get a chance to just battle themselves. And that's really what we want is we want each other battling ourselves individually. Like I need to battle myself in my relationship. And then my wife has the ability to support me. She needs to battle herself, and then I have the ability to support her to do her battle. So if it flips though, if it becomes like actually my wife has to battle me because I'm holding a standard that she's trying to meet, but can't necessarily based on whatever experiences that she's had in life. If that becomes a thing, well, now we're doing the wrong fights. We're fighting against each other instead of fighting ourselves to be in a different spot. And so that is our challenge in our relationship is to be able to free ourselves from the idea that at some rate, like I'm battling my partner, and then put in our lives like, okay, here's an opportunity for me to battle myself and partner up with somebody who cares about me and who loves me and wants to do the struggle with me. Okay, so that's the first thing is like the idea that somehow your partner won't change. Like that is a possibility because it's up to your partner whether they change or not. Um, but uh, the biggest possibility for them doing the change is actually when you let go of them trying to change and they can just battle themselves. The other part of that, and this is probably like me just being gotcha type, but I think it's useful. So you battling them hasn't made them change anyways, right? So, and matter of fact, it might even be creating more distance between the two of you. And I see that happen all too often, where somebody has a standard that another person isn't ready to be able to meet, not because they don't want to, but because we've been through so much in our life. And so each person putting that on each other makes it very difficult. Okay. And so it actually causes the opposite. The second thing is like, how do I make my needs met? If I agree with the saying that says like, I don't need anybody to do something different for me to be okay. I'm the only one that needs to do something different for me to be okay. How do I make my needs met? How am I going to get connection in my relationship? And that's super valid concern initially because I think that we have this route of like, actually, like, I need to tell my partner what my needs are so that they can meet the needs. That saying doesn't mean that you don't tell your partner what your needs are. Matter of fact, your partner is more like, especially if you guys are able to adopt this concept, your partner is more likely to come to you so that you don't even have to tell them. They're more likely to come to you and be curious about what it is that they can do to be next to you and to be close to you and to be able to support you. But if we keep this fight up, and this is the harshest thing I think that accidentally happens in relationship is we tell people what they're not doing, and by accident it minimizes who you chose, right? So you tell somebody what they're not doing, and by accident you minimize what they're chose. Now we don't have to be afraid of that because that's inevitably it's going to happen. A relationship hopefully will level us up at some rate, and if we're both in it for the right reasons, we're going to struggle through all that. But why would I want to do that to my partner, right? Now it's different if your partner comes to us and says like, "Hey, what are the things that we need to do to one up in our relationship? Let's start drawing those things up and get better at them, right?" And then you work together to be able to get better at those things. And so, do you have the ability to be able to share your needs? Absolutely. And I think the more that we're working on ourselves, we find constructive ways to be able to do that. And mostly, whenever I discuss the idea of I don't need somebody else to do something else for me to be okay. A lot of times there's an anxiousness about us when we're not seeing things happen our way. And that anxiousness kind of fuels in our relationship. And just like love gets love in a relationship, anxious gets anxious, right? Hesitation gets hesitation. Criticism gets criticism. And so the more that we can stick together and be able to support each other in our own individual growth, and we do our own individual growth, we just encourage that in our relationship anyways. Any circles that you talk about being a part of, everybody says like, whatever it is that your circle is doing, like the next person's gonna do that. Well, what if you in your relationship decided like, man, our relationship does personal growth so we can be better for each other. So we can be better for ourselves, so we can be better for each other. That's what our relationship does. And so I think the challenge has to be on for us to shift over this mindset from us trying to tell our partners what they are or not, or let our partners know what our needs are and be able to measure for them like, you are meeting my needs, you are not meeting my needs. um, we need to shift from that culture in our relationship to being really curious about how we get better in our relationship, and then how we can support our person to be able to get better in our relationship. So, I mean, again, it's a huge challenge to be able to shift this over. I think it's not only embedded in our relationships, it's embedded in our culture. But if you think about the thing that's probably creating a struggle in your relationship, you're probably doing a lot of finger pointing by accident. You might just be saying like, "Hey, you know what? I'm just trying to get my needs met, or I'm just trying to do things better." But by accident, you're accidentally pointing fingers, and ultimately, what that reads in the body for the person who's receiving that is, "I'm not good enough." And they will search and look for the thing in their life that helps them to fill that kind of scenario. And my question to you as a couple, like, how come we can't do that for each other? How come we can't admire the things that each one of us does do, instead of discrediting or highlighting the thing that each person is not? um, and so, I mean, this opportunity is such a big game changer in our relationship, that I think if you were to embark on this idea and really fight to get to this point where you're looking at your relationship through this lens, you're going to see a change. It's going to be massive, and you'll enjoy the outcome of it. But no good things come really with ease. And so I know it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle to undo what we've always known. It's going to be a struggle to see the world this way. Um, but your relationship's worth it, and you're definitely worth it. And so that's my ultimate plug to you guys. And I'll leave you with this, which is, it's not a matter of like your partner needing you not to criticize them. It's not a matter of your partner needing you not to say anything. To me, I mean, I can care less about that part in this conversation. What I really care about is that you don't have the heartache of trying to make somebody work in a certain area when they don't, right? We're all made a certain way. And so instead, I want you to have like um, the sense of joy inside of you because you're focused on the right things. And the best way to be able to do that is for you to be able to know, look, nobody else has to do something different for me to be okay. It's me who has to do something different for me to be okay. You just start working on that and chiseling away at that, and you'll see how it works out for you. You're going to be in a good spot. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy your week, and we will talk to you soon.